everybody. Welcome into a playoff edition of the Shelby County High School Football Show. We're out here at Pelham High School to get you geared up for the opening round of the 2021 playoffs, and we've got a record mark this season. 9 of our 11 teams going to be playing playoff football this week. That's a new high in the county's history, a remarkable year for a lot of our high school football teams here, as 9 of the 11 teams in the AHSAA from Shelby County will be playing postseason football either this Thursday or Friday night. Truly remarkable numbers there, as we have a historic season that we're in the midst of right now. In addition to that, we've also got the Coosa Valley Academy Rebels in the AISA in the first round of the playoffs, and the Evangel Lightning in the ACSC 8-man state championship game this Friday night. So a busy, busy week ahead. 9 teams from the AHSAA in the playoffs for the first time ever in Shelby County. We're going to see how many of those teams can advance to the second round. Last year we had 5 teams in the second round for the first time since 1997, more than 20 years since we hit that mark. We'll see if we can surpass that mark and hit 6, 7, 8, maybe all 9 teams make it to the second round. But with that said, there is not a single easy matchup. There may only be 1 or 2 teams that should be the favorite, should consider themselves feeling good going into their matchup. Everybody else, it's going to be a toss-up. There are some really good football games to take place this week. We're going to break them all down, give you what you need to look for as we head into these playoff matchups. On Thursday night, we've got one game, the Oak Mountain Eagles traveling to James Clemens. Everybody else going to be on Friday night, and there's going to be some great football to watch. So we're going to talk about all those games. We're going to dive in. We're going to talk about our game of the week right here at Pelham High School, as the Panthers will play host to McGill-Toolen in a 2-3 matchup here to kick off the playoffs. We're going to start with that one here right now to kick off this week's show, and then we're going to go through classification by classification and talk about all of the big playoff matchups coming up this week. As a whole, the county's hit a historic mark this year, and now we're going to have the Pelham Panthers looking to do the same as they look to pick up their first playoff win since the 2006 season. And we're starting to see what Tom Causey's been building here at Pelham High School the last couple of years. Last year winning their first region championship in so long, and now this year getting back into the playoffs for the second year in a row as a 2 seed, playing right here with home field advantage for the second year in a row to kick off the playoffs. And you're just starting to see that growth, that belief. You're starting to see the kids come back. This program really taking off here at Pelham High School, and it's not going to be an easy task this Friday night as they do host McGill-Toolen in a 2-3. Pelham, the 2 seed out of their region, McGill-Toolen, the 3 seed out of their region. But McGill plays in arguably the most difficult 6A region in the state out of the South. So it's going to be a very difficult task for the Pelham Panthers to be able to come in, pick up this victory on their home field. That said, you look at what they were able to do last week in getting the monkey off their back. They were able to pick up that win against the Homewood Patriots, a game that has escaped them for so long now, a team that they hadn't beaten in 8 consecutive years, and they come out, the defense, which has played so well the last several weeks of the season, came out and played arguably their best game of the season at the right moment. They give up just 7 points, win the game 10-7, and a strong performance there on the defensive side of the football. And Gabe Gamble at the running back position about midway through the season. We expected him to have a big year this year, and he was playing well early on. But the last few games in the second half of the season, he has just turned into another gear. He has carried this team the last several weeks on the offensive side of the football. Another big performance last week. We'll talk about that one in the SCR Stars of the Week segment at the end of the show. But a big reason they were able to get to 10 points and win that game last week. So a huge momentum boost for the Pelham Panthers going into the playoffs. Now they get another tall task, and they're going to have to play well on both sides of the ball yet again. The defense been playing lights out the last several weeks of the season. We obviously talked about last week what they were able to do, giving up just 7 points in that one. But played well overall this entire season. They're giving up just 18.7 points per game this season, and it's a defense that's given up 14 or less in their last 4 games in a row. It's the best this defense has been in several years, and not only that, but they've given up 21 or less in all but 3 games this entire season. So the defense, a big, big reason why this team has been as successful as they have. And early in the season, they were playing pretty good, but they were a little inconsistent at times. The offense is where we expected to see a lot of the fireworks with so much talent back on that side of the football, but now they've kind of become a little bit inconsistent. So you've got the defense playing arguably its best football in several years here at Pelham. So the big key going into this matchup against McGill-Toolen is how this offense is going to fare against a very good defensive football team that McGill is going to bring out there this Friday night. You look at these two teams, McGill enters off back-to-back losses. They fell 25-14 to number 5 Spanish Fort and 17-13 to 7-8 Dothan in their final 2 games of the season. So maybe a lack of confidence. They lose 2 in a row coming into this game. So you look at that, and that makes it difficult as far as just building up that momentum. You don't want to enter the postseason with a lack of confidence. So for McGill, it's about getting back to where they were, realizing how talented they can be, competing against some of the best teams in the state. Like I said earlier, Spanish Fort, that loss, not really a bad loss, 25-14 against a team that made it to the state championship last year, a very talented football team, and then 17-13, a 4-point loss to a 7A classification team there to Dothan last week. So it's still a very talented football team, averaging 33.8 points per game, giving up 22.4 points per game. So playing pretty sound on both sides of the football. Pelham does have an advantage on the defensive side with what we've seen so far this season, giving up about 4 points per game, less than what McGill's giving up. And then you look at the offense, they're scoring 8 points less per game at Pelham. They're scoring 25.8 points per game so far this season. So that's going to be the key to me. You've got a defense in Pelham that's playing so well, I think that can keep them in this game yet again. But can that offense come out and make some big plays early in this game? And boy, they've got to be motivated to do so. You've got a senior leaders in Will Langford, in Gabe Gamble. You've got Darius Copeland, Jake Fox. You've got so much talent on that side of the ball. But the big key to me, that offensive line has to step up and play its best game of the season this week for the Panthers to advance. If they can do that, we all know that Will Langford, he can make plays happen. He can extend plays with his legs. He'll find somebody downfield. This is a team that even if their offense is having an off night, they're still going to bust a big play, whether it be with Gamble in the run game or whether it be with Langford running the football or finding something downfield after extending the play. But he's got to have confidence at the quarterback position. That takes some pressure off of Gamble. It'll help open things up for this offense. They need to come out early. They need to come out prepared with a good week of practice and set the tone in this game, because if you fall behind, you start to lose that confidence in a playoff game with your season on the line. It's tough to bounce back. So finding a way to come out as motivated as you possibly can in this football game is going to be not just the key for Pelham, but every team competing in the playoffs this week. Off to fast starts has got to be your number one priority, which starts with a great week of preparation. I think this is going to be a fantastic football game. That's why I chose it as the game of the week, one of the best home games that we're going to have this Friday night. So I look forward to being out here covering this one. Should be a very good matchup between these two teams that are playing some great football. We'll see if Pelham can make some history and get to the second round of the playoffs again for the first time since 2006. It's going to be a lot of fun out here at Pelham High School. Well, the path to three-peating starts this Friday night for the Thompson Warriors. They'll be on their home field against Florence in an opening round matchup in which the big question mark is, will Connor Harrell play at the quarterback position? The Gatorade Player of the Year a season ago, the best quarterback in the 7A classification last year, and through the first 9 games of this season, and really through the first 9.5 games, played incredible up until halftime. They played arguably their best second quarter of the season against a very good Hoover football team there 2 weeks ago. He gets injured late in that first half, doesn't come back out for the second half with a right hand injury through his throwing hand. And now we just don't know what to expect. Will he play this week? Will they rest him in hopes that he's able to come back the week after, or a possible semifinal matchup? It's hard to say at this point. If he's feeling good enough to go, he's going to play football. But at the same time, you've got to know what your game plan is going to be early in the week going into this matchup. Now, we've heard rumors that Florence is also going to be starting a young quarterback this week, and that could be the biggest difference in this football game. We saw what happened a couple of weeks ago at the Hoover Met. The Thompson Warriors, they led 21-10 at the half in that top two battle, looking to close out a region championship. Harrell doesn't come out for the second half. The defense gives up 14 unanswered in the second half, and Thompson loses that one 24-21. Well, that could be the most dangerous thing that's possibly happened in this state this season, because that defense was already playing nasty enough, still giving up just 5 points per game after giving up those 24 points in that loss, and now they've got some motivation because people are doubting them and what they can do. If they were angry about me picking them to give up 14 points against Oak Mountain, now imagine what they're feeling after losing a football game. This is a team that wants to shut out every opponent. They're going to come out very hungry, very motivated, and determined to put up a goose egg on the scoreboard this Friday night in this matchup against Florence. And if Florence is starting a freshman quarterback, that's going to be a huge, huge factor in this game, because this Thompson defense, they had a couple of lackluster plays in that game against Hoover, but beyond that, they still played a pretty good football game overall, and to think that they can play even better than that is what's scary moving forward. And they know now if they're not 100% at the quarterback position on the offensive side, the defense has to lift this team up and be able to make some big-time plays. And when you've got a defensive line featuring Peter Woods, Jeremiah Alexander, a couple of guys that can really make big-time plays on the edge of the line there, and then you step back to the linebacker position and the secondary with a ton of Division I level talent at those positions. This defense is hungry, motivated, like I said, determined to make some big-time plays. I expect them to be a big reason that Thompson's going to bounce back this week. But you look at this game overall, even if Harrell is not ready to go, this is a Thompson offense that's still loaded with talent. You've got Ryan Pepins, you've got Justin Pegues, you've got Jalen Ward, three guys that can make big-time plays downfield. Against Hoover early in the second half, Zach Sims steps in as the backup quarterback, looks very similar to Harrell in his stature and size, and he made some good throws early in that second half. What I think happened, there were a couple of drops, and they started to second-guess and doubt themselves and lose a little bit of confidence on that side of the ball. The backup quarterback was in. You see a couple of drops that normally would be caught, and everything just kind of went by the wayside from that point. If he's your guy, if Sims is going to step in and be your guy this week, you've got to have the confidence in him. You can't step off the game plan of what you would do if Harrell was in that position, because we saw Sims make some great throws down the field, but as they lost confidence, things just didn't go well overall, and then they changed the game plan, and you had Pegues and you had Pepins both running out of the backfield, so expect a couple of weeks off of a bye during the final week of the regular season. Expect this offense to be ready to make plays no matter who's in at the quarterback position this week, taking on a Florence team that's coming off a 27-14 loss to 6A Gardendale, and Gardendale hasn't been as good this year as they've been in years past, so to only put up 14 points in that game, Thompson's defense going to be ready to bounce back. I think the cards stack in favor of the Warriors this week to have a big bounce-back performance, an extra week to prepare, to get healthy, refreshed, a team that's still scoring 46.6 points per game and giving up just 5 points per game, going up against a Florence team that's scoring 39 and giving up 22.7. So everything stacks in favor of Thompson. Now they have to come out hungry, motivated. They know what's ahead of them. They know what they need to do. They've won 2 state championships in a row. They know what it takes to get to at least the semifinals and then into the state championship. So right now it's 1 week at a time. Give everything you have these last few weeks of the season, because if you don't, it ends early, and that's not something any of these players want to experience. So I guarantee you that Thompson's going to come out motivated, ready to roll in this football game. Just a matter of them putting that onto the field, having confidence in whoever's at the quarterback position, making big plays offensively as they normally would, and then that defense living up to what we've come to expect. So going to be a fun one there at Warrior Stadium at Thompson High School as they do welcome Florence to open the playoffs. The Warriors looking to kickstart their path to a three-peat with another playoff victory. For the second year in a row, the Oak Mountain Eagles going to be looking to pull off a first-round upset. Last year, they did it with relative ease against Austin in the opening round on the road as the 4 seed out of Class 7A Region 3. This year, yet again, the 4 seed out of Class 7A Region 3 going on the road up north to take on a top 5 James Clemens team in the first round of the playoffs. James Clemens sitting at number 5 in the rankings. Oak Mountain, they enter this game, you could say, with a lack of motivation. I wouldn't say lack of motivation, but they've lost some of their confidence that they were playing with because of 3 consecutive losses. But you look at those losses to number 1 Thompson at the time that they played, now number 2, and then also to Hewitt-Trussville, a top 10 team in Class 7A, and Clay Chalkville, who is hands down the favorite to win the 6A state championship. They've just been dominant so far this season. So 3 consecutive losses to end the year, but 2 of those came, well, 2.5 of those came without Evan Smith, their star quarterback and 4-year starter there at the position for the Eagles. A lot of people expect him to be back this week to at least give it one final attempt there for Oak Mountain. I expect him to be back on the football field this Friday night, and that can make a huge difference. Look at what the Eagles did earlier this year against Hoover. They lost that game 28-21 by 7 points to now the number 1 team in the undefeated 10-0 Buccaneers. Last year in the playoffs, a tight battle with Hoover yet again. In that one, a 3-point game. And so they've been right there on the verge with one of the top teams in the state. The last couple of years battled with Hewitt-Trussville, even without Evan Smith there at the starting quarterback position. This week, if he's back, he is a game changer. No matter what he is doing on the football field, he can help you win a football game. And James Clemens, an undefeated 10-0 team, I think the biggest thing they have going for them is that Oak Mountain did win in an upset in similar fashion last year as the 4 seed. So James Clemens knows they need to be prepared for this game. They can't look past it if they want a chance to continue on with their season. And I think that's the biggest benefit they have because, honestly, the region that they do play in is not the strongest. It's a region they beat Huntsville by 3 points, 43-40. That's a team that Spain Park this year blew out early in the season, and Spain Park only won 2 total games so far throughout the regular season. So you look at those things, you look at some of the tight games that James Clemens has been in their region. It's just not as talented as what you get in Class 7A Region 3. That doesn't mean they're not a talented football team. They could well go on a run to at least the semifinals this season, depending on how things shake out. I'm just saying that Oak Mountain has seen the best teams in the state. They've competed with the best teams in the state. They're going to be ready to go in this football game. And if Evan Smith is back, we know what he can do for this offense, especially with the defense playing its best football in several years. And you can't take the last couple of weeks into account. It's an offense that's been getting off the field extremely quickly. The defense has been on the field the entire game, taking on some of the best teams in the state. They've just been completely gassed. But when you put Smith back out there on the offensive side, he makes plays. It continues to help that offense move the ball, sustain drives, and gives the defense even more rest. The rest that they really need and deserve. And you look at this game, you've got a James Clemens team scoring 40.2 points per game, giving up just 19.3. That said, the Jets have won 4 games by 7 points or less in that region. There's a very good chance that this team is not even a 1 seed, a 2 seed. This is a team, the second place team in this region, 5-5 overall this season. So that just shows that the talent just not as strong up in the northern region that James Clemens has been competing in. So we'll see if that's a factor. Oak Mountain should be able to come out and at least compete in this football game. They're scoring 40 points per game, or they're playing well on both sides of the ball as well, scoring 22 points per game, but the defense giving up just 20 points per game on the dot. It's a team that's played arguably their best football, maybe the second best defense that we've seen in school history, especially considering what you've seen on the defensive side the last few weeks. So if Oak Mountain can come out, play strong defensively, if Evan Smith comes out and makes his usual plays, this is a team that's not only going to be in it in the first half, but I think they get back to what we were seeing early in the year, those second half plays where they're able to make some big plays, some adjustments and changes in the second half to win football games. I think if they have a chance in the second half, if they're down by a touchdown by 10 points at the halftime break, things could be going really well for Oak Mountain in the second half. How fresh, how healthy they are coming off a 3-week gauntlet, that could also play a factor. This defense has got to be exhausted, so finding every ounce of energy they have going into this matchup, that's going to be a big-time key for the Eagles if they want to walk out victorious. Nonetheless, going to be a fantastic battle, a Thursday night game up at James Clemens. I can't wait to see how this one unfolds. We'll see if for the second year in a row, the Oak Mountain Eagles can make the quarterfinals. For the first time this season, the Helena Huskies going to have to bounce back from a loss. They haven't had to have that feeling before. They haven't had that experience before during the 2021 season, but coming off a 31-0 loss to number 5 Class 5A team UMS Wright in a road trip to Mobile last Friday night, their first loss of the season. So now how do they bounce back? How do they respond to some adversity for the first time this season as they get geared up to host Baldwin County in the first round of the playoffs? And this is a Baldwin County team that, sitting at 7-3, has won 4 games in a row to end the regular season. So they've got confidence and momentum, and Helena's having to find a way to bounce back. But at the end of the day, might not have been a bad thing to lose that game last week. It didn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things as far as what the postseason implications or anything along those lines. What it did do is probably make this already talented team even more hungry and motivated. And this was a team that won 7 of 9 games by 13 or less points. So a team that had been close to losing some games this year, didn't know what it felt like to have that loss, and now finally at the end of the year they saw what it was like to not come through in one of those football games. So it shows you, if you don't prepare properly, if you don't have things ready to go on Friday night, then anybody can step up and bite you, and that is the same situation this week with Baldwin County coming to town. This is a Baldwin County team, like I said, they've won their last 4 games in a row. The defense has given up 8 or less in every single one of those games. They're now giving up just 13.8 points per game on the season. Defense playing lights out. The offense scoring 33 points per game. So it's a team that is extremely talented, and they are a good football team coming out of that difficult region in the South that we talked about a little bit earlier in Pelham's segment. This region matches up with a difficult region from the South. So finding a way to be ready to go in this game is going to be key. That said, this is a Baldwin County team that has scored 24 or less against the best defenses that they have faced this season. Helena, they're giving up just 20 points per game. They're scoring about 31.5 points per game. So this is still a very talented football team, and the defense, honestly, at times just hasn't been what we expect it to be, and we know they've got the talent. So if they can find a way to make it click, put it all together, they're a very well-coached unit. It's about the players believing in themselves, and then also coming out and starting fast early in the football game and setting the tone physically on that defensive side. If they can do that, then Helena's going to come out. They're going to have a strong chance on the legs of Jordan Washington to put up another victory in the opening round. He was the only one last week in that loss that had any semblance of success on the offensive side. Ran for 100-plus last week, took 20-plus carries to get there, but he was able to do that on the offensive side. But they were outgained 356 to 187 in that football game on the offensive side of the football, as UMS Wright just basically did what they wanted to and controlled that football game, which is what you're used to seeing from Helena. This week, not only does Washington have to step up and have a big game, you're going to have big games in the passing game from Mac Turner. J.C. Sibley's going to have to step up. The offensive line going to have to step up. But if you don't have any balance on the offensive side, once you get into the playoffs, you may be able to get through the first round, but once you start to try to make it and advance past round 2 and 3, you've got to have balance. Teams are going to be too good defensively, and they're going to find ways to shut down whatever you're trying to do on the offensive side of the football. So if you're Helena, a little bit of balance coming out, setting the tone early in the football game, maybe keeping Baldwin County off balance early in the football game by coming out and having a big pass play in those first couple of possessions, and that'll open things up for Washington even more on the ground. But the biggest key, Helena wants to come in. They want to be physical and wear you down with their running game. And if you're going to do that, then it's all up to the offensive line. They've got to create that push up front. They've got to create the holes. And Washington's got to be fast to the outside if that's what they're going to do. You've got to come out believing in yourselves, set the tone with the ground game, and just really try to bully your way through this win. And the defense has got to play up to its expectation. If they can do that, Helena will win this football game. I think it's a very tight game, though. This is a team in Baldwin County that's battle-tested, just like Helena. They've played some really good opponents. Now, Helena, if it is a tight football game, like I said earlier, they've won 7 games by 13 or less. They know what it takes to sneak out those close games late in the contest. I think that could ultimately make the difference at the end of the night. But the more I look at this on paper, Helena needs to be prepared and ready. And I know head coach Richie Busby is going to have them ready to go in this game because he knows that this team can sneak up and can upset them as a 4 seed. We've seen it in the past couple of years. Pelham and Helena both struggling, matching up out of this region. Wouldn't surprise me if they're not ready if they lose this one as well. So got to be ready and prepared. Have a great week of practice, watch and study film, and know what to expect when you step on the football field Friday night in front of your home crowd. But I think it's going to be rocking. I think they're going to be so motivated to win this football game. The Helena Huskies know what's ahead. They know that their path is a little bit easier as that 1 seed, so they want to make a run, and that starts this week. I think you're going to see a motivated bunch come out, have a lot of fun, and do their best to pick up a playoff win. The Briarwood Lions, they're going to welcome an old rival coach to Briarwood Christian School this Friday night as Chris Elmore brings his Fort Payne team down to Briarwood for the first round of the playoffs. Elmore, a former head coach of the Chelsea Hornets, had success there, leading Chelsea to the playoffs in the past. Now he'll bring a new team down to face the Lions as they get set for a big battle here in the opening round of the playoffs. And you look at this matchup, and it's another one that's a little bit sneaky. This could be a very good football team, even with Briarwood as a top 7 team in the Class 6A standings, a team that's only lost this season a 14-0 game against Mountain Brook. And that Mountain Brook, that was their closest win of the season. Their only loss, obviously, to number 1 Thompson earlier in the season. So Mountain Brook, the region champions, Briarwood really tested them on the defensive side of the football. Couldn't get things going offensively or convert chances deep inside Spartans territory, but they challenged Mountain Brook in that game, a team that could win a 6A state championship. So if you're Briarwood, you've got to carry that momentum into a game like this, into your playoff run. This is a team in Briarwood that fell in the second round of the postseason last year, so they're hungry. They've got the talent to be to make it a little bit further this year. It's just a matter of playing up to that talent level, and it starts on the defensive side of the ball. It's a defense that replaced so much from what they had last year on that side of the ball, their first year back in the 6A classification. And they just had to replace a lot of talent coming into this year on the defensive side of the ball, including their top 4 tacklers. But as the season's gone along, they've gotten better on that side of the ball. And you saw what they did against Mountain Brook, giving up just 14 points against a really solid offense so far this season. The Lions, they enter off a 40-15 win against Corner last week. All 15 of those points by Corner came in the late in the third quarter and then in the fourth quarter with the backups in for Briarwood. So expect this defense that's been playing so well, now giving up just 17.1 points per game, and they've given up 22 or less in all but one game so far this season. So that defense has to make a difference in this game, set the tone physically early in this contest. If they can do that, that's going to open up things and give the confidence to the offense, give confidence to the offense a little bit more in what they're able to do as well. Quarterback Christopher Vizina is leading this unit, a unit that's scoring 33.6 points per game, that scored 41 or more in their first 5 games of the season. They've been a little bit inconsistent up and down over the second half of the season, but you look at what they've been able to do with some injuries that they've had to battle through as well. Luke Rebels is now back and healthy. He's playing well late in the season. The last couple of games really seems to be getting back to what we expect from Luke Rebels. I would say he's going to have a big game. Quarterback Christopher Vizina, the 4-star recruit, one of the more talented quarterbacks in the country, not only running the football well, but he's got a strong arm, and that leads me to what I think is the biggest key of this game. Who outside of Rebels can step up and help Vizina in the offensive game plan? We've seen Ethan Anderson do it at times at the receiver position. We've seen a couple of others step up. They're without Jay Butler for the rest of the season. So who's going to be that second, third guy to go to in the passing game? They may be able to get by Fort Payne without a huge passing performance. I think Rebels and Vizina with their legs can win this one if the defense plays well enough. But when you get into rounds 2, kind of like we talked about with Helena, rounds 2, 3, and beyond, you're going to need some balance on the offensive side. You're going to need somebody to step up and emerge down the field as a go-to target. And when you've got a talented quarterback like Vizina, you got to take some chances with that arm at some point. So we'll see what happens with that as they move forward in the postseason. But Fort Payne, a talented football team. They've been playing some of their best football down the stretch. They're scoring 27.2 and giving up 21.4 points per game on the defensive side of the football. They've won 6 of their last 7 games to finish the season 6-4. So they started out with a struggle early in the season, but they've started to play extremely well down the stretch after an 0-3 start, winning 6 of their final 7 games to close out the regular season. The Wildcats, though, they've given up 27 or less in all but 2 and 14 or less in 5 of their last 7 games. That's the biggest key. Their defense also starting to play their best football of the season. Briarwood's defense playing extremely well. Expect this to be a tight battle, at least at the half. Briarwood going to have to try to wear them down, find some things into the second half of this game. Now, if it comes down to special teams and field goal kicking, you've got a Fort Payne team that's got one of the best kickers in the country, a future Auburn Tiger, Alex McPherson. He had a 61-yard field goal last week, and he just missed on a 70-plus yard field goal in that game as well. So he can boot a big-time field goal if it comes down to that. So if you're Briarwood, you've got to keep that in the back of your minds. Find a way to kind of pull away, create some separation so this game doesn't come down to something like that. But at the end of the day, Briarwood's defense should be enough with their ground game. They should be able to wear down Fort Payne in the second half. It's going to be a well-coached team coming into Briarwood, though, so the Lions going to have to be ready, going to have to play sound and be physically ready for a battle in this one, or just like everybody else this week, they could be going home early. So how bad do you want it? How motivated are you? The biggest keys to this game for the Briarwood Lions. Calera head coach Jason Hamlin couldn't have said it better himself than basically Calera's got nothing to lose this Friday night as they hit the road down to Mobile to take on number 5 Spanish Fort in the opening round of the Class 6A playoffs. And he's exactly right. This is a Calera team nobody expected to be in the playoffs this year. First year under Hamlin as the head coach, a team that had won just one head-to-head game each of the last 3 seasons coming into this year. They hadn't won a football game on their home field since 2017, hadn't won more than one game since 2017, and hadn't made the playoffs since jumping into the 6A classification. So you look at that and what this team was able to do. They finished 6-0 on their home field to end the regular season with the 31-21 win against Chelsea last week, finished 7-3 overall in the regular season. This is a team just remarkable what they've been able to do so far this season. So they're going to go into this game against a top 5 team with that same mindset. What do we have to lose? We've already surprised people. We've shocked them with what we've been able to do this year. Why can't we do that again? What's to say we can't come out here and win this football game? The pressure is going to be on Spanish Fort to live up to the hype, to try to get back to the state championship game and seek redemption for their championship loss to Pinson Valley a year ago. So for Calera, it's just go in and continue to do what they've been able to do, which is capitalize on some of the best athletes in the state. You look at what Calera has done so far this season, like I said, sitting at 7-3, a team that was a combined 14 points from winning a region championship this year with narrow losses, a 10-point loss to Helena and a 4-point loss to Pelham, games that they both led in the third quarter there with chances to win. So you look at those two matchups. If they win those, they're sitting as region champs in the number one seed this year, which is just unfathomable considering where they've been the last 3 years. So a remarkable turnaround going into this matchup. You look at their athletes on the offensive side of the football as being a key reason why a team that's scoring 29.3 points per game, which tells me they still haven't reached their full potential with what I've seen with my own eyes. This is a team that could easily be scoring closer to 40 points per game if they can find their best rhythm here in the playoffs. And that just speaks to what they've been able to do, the improvements they've made on that side of the football. You look at quarterback Preston Stokes stepping in his first year as a starter. Kobe Prentice out wide at receiver. Braylon Farrington, who I think is one of the fastest guys in the state at the receiver position. Daniel Carmona, Chris Cotton, both at the running back position. Physical guys that can break away for big runs as well. And then an offensive line that I think is going to be the biggest part of this week, and if they want a chance to win, an offensive line that's improved throughout the year, going up against a unit at Spanish Fort that's going to probably be a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit more athletic. So how do you prepare for that up front is the key. Come out ready, determined to prove yourselves, and use that as motivation that some might think that Spanish Fort has a better defensive line ready to handle your offensive line. If you can do that, and you've given this offense time to get the ball in the hands of those playmakers, we know what they can do. This is a unit that not only can make plays down the field, but we've seen a lot of their big chunk plays come on short, quick bubble screens, slants, jet sweeps, anything that can get the ball behind the line of scrimmage a lot of times in the hands of those playmakers to then in open space make some big-time plays. Alabama commit Kobe Prentice is the prime example, but Braylon Farrington has stepped up and made big-time plays as well. This is an offense that if a team is not ready for them, like Spanish Fort, a talented football team, but if they're not ready for what Calera can throw out there offensively, the Eagles are going to put up some points. And this is a defense that's playing drastically better than it has in the past as well. They're scoring, like I said, 29.3, but the defense giving up 21.6 points per game. They've won 6 of their last 7 games, and like I said, 2 of their 3 losses by 10 points or less so far this season. So it's a very good Calera football team ready to make some big-time plays in this game. And look, it simply comes down to physicality, athleticism, and speed in this game. I think Calera's got 2 of the fastest people in the state in Kobe Prentice and Braylon Farrington, so I think they honestly have an edge in that department. So then you've got to find the physicality level. If you're physical enough, if you go into this matchup saying, we can match up with you, we're ready to go, and we're not going to back down, then you can walk out of this game victorious. But that's what it depends on. The defense has got to be ready for a very tough physical battle. They're going to have to hunker down and play their best game of the season. And then the offense is going to have to set the tone in the blocking game. So they're going to have to go out of their way almost to find somebody to block and hit if you're blocking for a big play. So that physicality standpoint is, I think, the biggest thing and the biggest key from the defensive side and from the offensive line. That's what will make the difference in this game. If Calera comes ready on the defensive side to be physical, if they come out ready on the offensive front to make big-time blocks for that talented offense, then they will be right in this football game. I don't see it necessarily being a blowout. I think Calera's going to hang in this game. I think they can make enough plays on the offensive side to keep this one tight. Spanish Fort, though, they've got high aspirations to get back and redeem last year's state championship loss. So it's a tall task ahead for the Calera Eagles, but they're playing with house money at this point. What an unbelievable season that they have had so far. We'll see how they cap it off as they hit the road for a big matchup with Spanish Fort to close out or to open the 2021 playoffs and look to continue a very special season there under first-year head coach Jason Hamlin. A couple of weeks ago, I had a sneaky feeling that Chelsea would be able to compete alongside Mountain Brook, and while they played well, it was only 25-0 loss. The offense didn't do what I expected them to do. Now, that's a Mountain Brook defense that's arguably the best in the 6A classification, so you can't really hang your hat on that. It was a very tough test for this Chelsea offense. The defense, however, did play well. It was one of the toughest tests for Mountain Brook's offense this year outside of their Briarwood game and their game against the Thompson Warriors. Chelsea's defense played decently well, especially for how much they were on the field against Mountain Brook. Now the Hornets enter the postseason off back-to-back losses after a 31-21 loss to Calera. That broke up their 4-game winning streak following their 4-game losing streak to start the season. So how do they bounce back now? And just like a couple of weeks ago, I have another good feeling. This is a matchup in the opening round as they'll hit the road to take on Oxford, and it's not the Oxford team that we've seen the last couple of years. They're still well coached. They've got a new head coach in Sam Adams who stepped in from Hillcrest, Tuscaloosa, and he's done a great job with this team, but it's not the team that was competing for a state championship a couple of years ago, or the one, in my opinion, that even made it just to the third round last year. I think that Chelsea could go into this matchup and really match up well against Oxford. Now it comes down to the belief. If they play like they did last week or the week before, they're not going to win this football game. They looked very, very sloppy in the first half against Calera a week ago, and then in the second half they came out and moved the ball right down the field and came back to make that at least a tight game with a chance late in a 31-21 loss. So finding that consistency, we saw it early in the year. They lost those first few games, but 3 of those 4 games in the open, they were tied 13-13 even at the half with Oak Mountain in the opener, go on to get blown out in that one 46-19 after the 13-13 tie. But against Briarwood, against Homewood, against Helena, and against Calera this season, this is a Chelsea team that has been right in all of those football games. They've lost them all by 10 points or less. They just haven't played a complete game in any of those games. And then they came out and they found a way to do so in that 4-game winning streak that did get them in to the playoffs. So getting back to that, coming out early in this football game, not being scared, not trying to feel out. You have to believe that when you go into this game, that you can win this football game. You can't go in trying to feel out what Oxford's going to do. Can we possibly compete with them, maybe pick up a win here? You go in with the belief that we can pick up a win because you look at the numbers on paper, Chelsea's played one of the most difficult schedules in the state, and you've competed with just about every single team in that schedule. So if you don't believe you can win after that schedule going up against this team in Oxford who hasn't played as difficult of a schedule and isn't playing as well on either side of the ball, then you don't even need to play the game. You've got to have that belief, and that's going to be, in my opinion, the biggest key in this football game. It's all about the mentality that the Hornets go into this game with, the week of practice and preparation that they have getting ready. Are they going to study film? Are they going to work hard every day at practice thinking that they can win this game? Or are they going to try to just find something that maybe can get them a possible chance at a win? But you look on paper, Chelsea's scoring 25.5 points per game. That's 5 more points than Oxford is scoring this year. Chelsea giving up 28.3 points per game. That's 1 point less than what Oxford is giving up this year. So Chelsea honestly playing a little bit better on both sides of the football this year against a very difficult schedule, and that's why they're in the position that they're in as a 4 seed, while Oxford is sitting in the position of a 1 seed. Now, don't get me wrong with anything I'm saying. Oxford is a very, very good football team. Sam Adams is a very good head coach, and I know that he can take this team on a strong run in the playoffs that could still make a threat for a state championship this year. So this is a very talented team. What I'm saying is Chelsea has to believe that they can compete in this game. We've seen the defense play extremely well throughout the season. They've gotten better even when the defense has had to play a lot of snaps on the game. But they've been playing well enough. It's a team that is relied heavily on that side of the ball at times. And the offense is what's worried you the last few games. They scored 21 or less in 3 straight games on the offensive side of the football. So that's got to be the side that finds their juju again, gets back to that confidence that we saw early in the season. Hayden Garrison has a great arm at the quarterback position. Cooper Griffin's as gritty as they come at the tight end and receiver position. Thomas Simpson, a guy that can go up and make big plays downfield. He's just got to go out there and be the aggressor and go after some of those balls. If they take those chances, that's going to be a huge key in this pass game. Find ways to get the ball out of Garrison's hands quickly at times, but then also keep that threat down the field, because the biggest thing is that they haven't had much of a run game on the offensive side the last several weeks, and I think that's going to be the difficult part in this matchup. If they can't find a rushing attack, there's just not enough balance to be able to pick up a win. So what do you do? How do you find a way to kind of create that threat of a run? And it's going to be throw the ball to quick bubble screens, kind of like we talked about with Kalira a few minutes ago. Get the ball out of Garrison's hands quickly behind the backfield, behind the line of scrimmage in the backfield, and let some playmakers make plays out in space. Otherwise, it's going to be Simpson down the field vertically or Griffin over the middle of the field making some big-time plays. But I've been told on several occasions this is a Chelsea group that they believe in each other, they work together, they work hard, and even if they're not going to be the most talented team on the field every night of the week, this is a team that's going to work their butts off and have a chance to win a football game. They're not going to go down without a fight in this one. I think they will be prepared. Would not shock me in the least if the Chelsea Hornets end up pulling off this 4-1 upset in the opening round of the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch between these two teams, a very tough test for the Hornets, but I think they're ready for it. I think you're going to see a great battle from Chelsea in this matchup. It's a special week for the Shelby County Wildcats, hosting their first playoff game since the 2009 season, and you look back to what this team's been able to do in year one under head coach Zeb Ellison, who's taken over the Wildcats as a graduate of Shelby County High School, and what he's been able to do this season alone. But beyond that, this is a team going into last year that hadn't made the playoffs since that last time they had home field advantage in 2009. Last year they get into the playoffs. This year now have home field advantage in their first year under a new head coach. So remarkable stuff what he's been able to accomplish in leading this program, but also what this team's been able to do the last 2 years to buy in, improve, and not only get into the playoffs, but now earn home field advantage this season. The Wildcats, it's going to be a tough battle as they do welcome Faith Academy. Faith Academy playing some great football so far this season. They're scoring 30 points per game and giving up just 13.4 points per game. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second as the Wildcats are going to face a tough test from what their offense can do against a very talented football team. This is a Faith Academy team that has lost all 4 of its games this season by 8 points or less, in 3 of those games by 3 points on the dot. So, and that's against a very difficult football schedule this season as well. So this is going to be a well-tested Faith Academy team, a talented Faith Academy team, and one, even though they're the 3 seed, having to go on the road, that is arguably the favorite to win this game. So how does Shelby County handle that on their home field with everything that's going on? And I think they have to ride the emotional high of this game. That can be such an adrenaline push for this team. It can really help them make big-time plays against a very talented football team. And you look at what they've been able to do, and it's largely on the defensive side. This is Shelby County team scoring just 21.8 points per game offensively, but the defense giving up just 22.7 points per game, and they're playing great on that side of the football. They've given up 22 or less in their last 5 straight and in 7 of 9 games this season. So that shows that the defense should be able to keep this game close, at least keep Faith Academy within 30 points. So then it's a matter of can the offense make enough plays to get to, say, 21, 28 points in this football game. Coming off a 35-14 win last week to close out the regular season, can the Wildcats continue to find what they saw a week ago offensively? Connor Aderholt picked up a big night a week ago, 200-plus rushing yards, a couple of touchdowns. Bradley Horton had more than 150 rushing yards in that game and 3 total touchdowns on the ground. So can they carry that confidence on the offensive side in the run game into this game against a better team than what they faced last week? And that's going to be the biggest key. That offensive line's got to show some promise, got to show some physicality and size, and overall they've got to just find some space and some openings, take some shots downfield with the pass, which they haven't done a ton this season. They've done it more than in years past, so finding a way to make some big-time plays down the field, that's going to be a very big key going into this matchup. I think their style of play on the offensive side, it's a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical. It can take up some time off the clock. That combined with a defense that's playing really well and that shouldn't give up more than 28 points in this game, the Wildcats going to have their chances to win this football game. At the end of the day, though, Faith Academy seems to be the more talented team overall, and it's a team that's battle-tested, winning a lot of close games so far this season. I think they have a slight edge going into this matchup, but if that adrenaline, playing on their home field, the emotions of their first home game, playoff game since 2009, if that can lift the Wildcats into a new level of play, I think you're going to see a tight battle. Would not surprise me if they're able to pull off this victory and make it to the second round of the playoffs under first-year head coach Zeb Ellison. Boy, would that be special. I can't wait to see if they can try to pull that off and make it into the second round. Going to be a lot of fun to see what the Wildcats put out there and the effort they have in this battle against Faith Academy. The Montevallo Bulldogs couldn't have asked for a bigger momentum boost going into the playoffs than taking down perennial powerhouse Maplesville last week, 20-7. The number 3 team in the 1A classification. And look, I know that's a team that's 3 classifications lower than Montevallo, who resides in the 4A classification, but Maplesville's beaten teams way higher classification-wise. In their history, it's a program that is prided in tradition and rich in history with what they've been able to do as a state powerhouse, and they were undefeated going into that matchup. Maplesville has played a great season as usual, and Montevallo able to go out and really have their way on the ground running the football. Joseph Anderson, another huge night for the Bulldogs in that one. We'll talk about him in our SCR Stars of the Week segment and what he was able to do and what he's going to need to be able to do this week as well, as they now get a big matchup against number 9 Jackson to open the playoffs. And Montevallo's second year in a row that they enter the postseason as a 3 seed, second year in a row that they finished the year with a strong stretch of play. After starting 2-2 through their first 4 games, they go on to win their final 6 in a row. Last year, a lot of those games down the stretch were forfeited, giving them automatic wins. This year, they are tested. They have played those games, and they have won those football games, and they played better against American Christian, who's likely going to be the number 2 team in the classification going into the playoffs. They played better against Bibb County this year, and if they had Bibb County later in the season, might would have tested them and challenged them even more than they did early in the season. So this is a Montevallo team. They're better than they were last year on both sides of the football. But just like last year, they ended up pulling off an upset as the 3 seed against a 2 seed on the road in the opening round of the playoffs. The difference this year, they get a much tougher opponent. Jackson, a very good football team, also very similar situation to Montevallo. Started the season 2-2 with 2 losses in a row, but since those 2 losses in a row, same weeks as Montevallo, they bounced back with 6 wins in a row heading in to the postseason. One of their losses to the number 2 team, 39-13, team that just lost in the regular season, likely going to slide back to number 3 or 4, as American Christian will be the new number 2 team that Montevallo lost to in a tight battle, 34-10. Also lost to Bibb County 35-13. So both of these teams seem pretty similar, and I know that this is a battle, a tough test for the Bulldogs. Jackson playing some great football, 38.5 points per game on the offensive side, giving up just 20.2 on the defensive side of the football. But at the end of the day, you look at what Montevallo's been able to do as well. An offense that's scoring 35.1 points per game. Defense is giving up just 18.3 points per game. And Blake Boren says this is going to be one of their more difficult tests in a couple of years, but that's a good thing. This is the kind of test you want to prove that you've taken that next step as a program, and both of these teams on a roll, on fire, playing their best football of the season. So which one comes out ready to roll and ready to make a deep run in the playoffs? You look at Montevallo last year, made that strong run in the postseason to get to the second round with that first round upset under a first-year head coach. Now the head coach is a year better, a year more experienced, leading this group, knowing what his team needs, and then the players themselves a year more experienced with a playoff game under their belt last year and a strong chance winning that game, now knowing what it takes to win a playoff football game. It's going to be a tougher test this week for the Bulldogs, but Joseph Anderson, he can make big-time plays. Kyle Cottingham, we'll see how he's able to make what he's able to do on the offensive side at the quarterback position as well. He's a strong athlete there for the Bulldogs. So just expect this to be a very good football game. I don't think either team's going to pull away and blow the other out. I think this is going to be a very tightly contested game. Winner of this one, in my opinion, could surprise a lot of teams and make a deep run moving forward. I really like Montevallo to have a strong chance. We'll see if they're able to win this football game. It's going to be a very tough game, probably their toughest of the season since American Christian, so we'll see how they handle that test. But nonetheless, this is a very talented team that is very experienced, could make some big-time plays. Looking forward to seeing how it unfolds there on Friday night as the Bulldogs hit the road to take on Jackson. Well, that takes us into the AISA and the ACSC as we get ready for those postseasons as well. And in the AISA, the Coosa Valley Academy Rebels, they kick off the AISA playoffs this Friday night. Going to be taking on Sparta Academy on the road in a very interesting matchup as these two teams closed out the regular season a week ago against one another as well. Sparta Academy, the number 9 team in the AISA, 8-1 overall, squeaked that one out 6-0. They win that football game, and what that shows me, Coosa Valley still got some struggles and some issues on the offensive side of the football, but this defense, they can shut down the best teams in the state, and they did that last week, holding Sparta to just 6 points in the first quarter, winning that game as Sparta wins that game 6-0 as the number 9 team. Coosa Valley's defense giving up 21.8 points per game, and that's against some of the state's best teams so far this year. The offense, though, scoring just 15.8 points per game this season, and I think that's the biggest key in this one. But you look at what Coosa Valley was able to do defensively last week. That was the best that anybody has played against them, against Sparta defensively this entire year. So a very strong showing from the Rebels on the defensive side of the football. They can do that again and show something different, come up with a game plan this week after just playing Sparta last week. Maybe they've got a feel, maybe they've got something they can draw up that can really help lead them to victory, find a rhythm on the offensive side. But this is a physical, hard-fighting defense that will make plays and will keep this game close. Watch out for the Rebels. They've got an experienced head coach in Vince DiLorenzo. Wouldn't surprise me if they're able to pull off the upset here in advance to the second round of the playoffs. As for the Evangel Lightning, they get the ACSC state championship game this week. They'll travel on the road to Ezekiel looking for redemption, as Ezekiel's won 2 of the last 3 against Evangel, and earlier this season it felt like Evangel was the favorite to win that game, but Ezekiel walks out with the victory in that game. And you look at the way that's kind of been, it's kind of a similar situation to last year as well, where Evangel felt like the better team going into that battle, but then in the playoffs, or in the national tournament there, Evangel gets redemption a season ago, wins the 8-man national championship, didn't get a chance to compete for the state championship last year. This year, they do, and they're looking for revenge again. I expect that to be a big key. It's weird, though, because Ezekiel, they lost 32-7 and 34-32 to Freedom and Lighthouse earlier in the year, and then they come out and beat Evangel after that stretch. They've won 5 in a row since then. And so those 2 losses, just very bizarre, kind of weird situation for Ezekiel early in the season. But we've seen Evangel bounce back, start to play their best football of the season. I think they're going to have a very good chance. These 2 teams, they're rivals. They're going to battle it all out for the ACSC state championship. I expect it to be a tight game as usual. So we'll see who can make more plays in the second half, pull away, and pick up the 8-man state championship. Both these teams likely to compete for an 8-man national championship as well. So we'll see what this means for the future of both, but one of them going to walk away 8-man state champions at the end of the night. Well, that takes us to our SCR Stars of the Week segment. We're going to jump right in, name off our best performances from the final week of the regular season. And it starts at Calera High School and what the Eagles were able to do to close out the regular season with their win against the Chelsea Hornets, 31-21. Kobe Prentice, 146 yards, 3 touchdowns on 7 receptions there for the Eagles. Several of those touchdowns on 3rd and long, all 3 of those touchdowns on 3rd and long, as he led the Eagles in that one offensively. Chris Cotton, also a big night, 11 carries, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Also busted up the middle on a big 3rd down conversion for a touchdown as he continues to play well there on the offensive side. Those 2 going to be extremely key if the Eagles want to pull off an upset against Spanish Fort. So will the defense and what they're able to do. Michael Banks-Mason, C.J. Richardson, both playing well on that side of the football. Each had 8 tackles and a combined 3 tackles for loss, 2 from Banks-Mason and 1 from Richardson there last Friday. Look for them to step up big and know that they have to play a big role, an important role for Calera in this game coming up against Spanish Fort. As for the Pelham Panthers, Gabe Gamble, another huge night for the Panthers, running the football, 18 carries, 193 yards, and 1 touchdown there in that win against Homewood. And the defense, how about the way that they've played down the stretch and really this entire season and what they've been able to do? Bishop Rella, 12 tackles, Cody Beathers, 7 tackles and an interception, and Braden Marlowe, 8 tackles and an interception for the Panthers last week. Just played so well defensively last week, played so well defensively this entire year. That's going to be the key right here behind me this Friday night as they play host to McGill-Toolen. That defense has got to come ready to play. If they do that, going to have a strong chance to pick up a big playoff win for the first time since 2006. For the Briarwood Lions, Luke Rebels, a big performance as he's starting to get back to full strength, look like himself again there on the offensive side. 120 plus all-purpose yards with 3 touchdowns. And then Christopher Vizina at the quarterback position, 6-9, 214 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, also had a 25-yard rushing touchdown there for the Lions as that offense continues to try to find what it needs to make a deep playoff run. This defense has really been surprising with what they've been able to do this season. Maybe not as talented as years past, still a very good defense, so that offense taking that next step is really all that's keeping this team from being a legitimate deep postseason threat to win a state championship. If they can step up and start making big plays, have 300-plus yards of offense each and every night, I expect them to make a deep postseason run. As for the Shelby County Wildcats, also going to need that offense to play well as they hit the postseason. Connor Ederholt, 227 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Bradley Horton, 149 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Both those guys need to replicate those performances this week against Faith Academy to have a chance on the offensive side, while the defense just needs to keep doing what it's doing. Just unbelievable where this defense has come in 2 years' time from where they were 2 years ago, improved last year drastically, and now improved even more this season on that side of the ball. And Jacorian Butler, a big reason why. 2 interceptions last week for the Wildcats. They've got some big-time playmakers over there looking to help them as they get into the postseason. Joseph Anderson, Montevallo, we've mentioned his name a lot this year. Just ridiculous what he's been able to do. 254 yards, 3 touchdowns on 36 carries as he really controlled that game against Maplesville, helped the Bulldogs pick up a 20-7 win. And on the defensive side, it was Jamion Prentice, 10 tackles in that game, played a major role in helping limit a very good Maplesville team to just 7 points in that win for the Bulldogs. At Vincent, their final game of the season, and we haven't talked about the Yellow Jackets yet on the show, but they finished 6-4 for the first time since 2013, their first time above 500 in a season as they get to 6-4. Jamari Lawson, Vincent, 8 carries, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, also had a touchdown reception in that game. He was big all year for the Yellow Jackets in that historic season for them. And Zach Wright, 10 tackles and an interception in that game for the Yellow Jackets. Played great on the defensive side as the Yellow Jackets get the 34-6 win against Prattville Christian. A very special ending to the season for them there at Vincent and head coach Lucas Weatherford as they continue to take that program to the next step. So that's a strong list of players from the final week of the regular season. Now a new season begins this Friday night. Who's going to step up, make the big-time plays, and who are we going to mention on next week's show as big-time playmakers in the first round of the playoffs? Well, that's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School football show, and what a week we have ahead. It's just going to be remarkable to see 9 total teams out of our 11 AHSA football teams taking place in the first round of the playoffs this Thursday and Friday. The Oak Mountain Eagles going to be the first ones to open up, looking to pull off the upset as the 4 seed, traveling up to take on number 1 James Clemens, the number 5 team in the rankings in Class 7A. We'll see if they can pull off that first round upset. Then we get into a busy Friday night of action, 8 AHSAA matchups. Then we've also got that 1 AISA and 1 8-man game there for Evangel as well. So a busy week ahead with busiest night of playoff action we've ever had in Shelby County history. Going to be a lot of fun to watch unfold. I'll be right here at Pelham High School on Friday night, our game of the week, as the Panthers play host to McGill-Toolen, looking to get to the playoffs for the first time, or the second round of the playoffs for the first time since 2006. 6. One of many incredible opening round games. I can't wait to see how they all unfold. But that's going to do it for now from Pelham High School. See you all on Friday night.